What's up, everyone? Today, we're going to be looking at how we can convert our absolute value functions into piecewise functions. Let's begin with this basic function, absolute value of x. Well, the first thing I like to do is take whatever's inside this absolute value, in this case x, and set it equal to 0. Alright, so now we have that x is equal to 0, and we're going to place this 0 on a number line. And we're going to see what happens when x is greater than 0 and what happens when x is less than 0. Alright, so when x is greater than 0, we know that our x value is going to be positive. Let's say positive 12, right? And when we plug in positive 12 into our absolute value function, we're going to get a positive value. So this essentially means that absolute value of x is going to be equal to x, right? Because 12 is equal to 12. All right, so here we're going to write that our function is f when x is greater than or equal to 0. Now let's look at what happens when x is less than 0 or negative. For example, if we plug in a number like negative 12, we're going to get positive 12 as our result. Now, what happens to the negative 12 to make it positive? Well, essentially, we're multiplying that negative 12 by negative 1, right? So, this means that when x is less than 0, right? When x is negative, we're going to have to multiply this value x by negative 1, which gives us negative x. So now we've split our absolute value function, absolute value of x, into two different functions. When x is greater than or equal to 0, our function that we're going to use is x. However, when our x value is less than 0 or negative, the function we're going to be using is negative x. Now we're going to be looking at another example to make this a bit more clear. So now we have the function absolute value of x minus 7. Now as before, what I'm going to do is set what's inside of the absolute value function equal to 0. So now we have x minus 7 is equal to 0, and I'm going to solve for x. So now we have x is equal to 7. And we're going to place the 7 on a number line. So now we're going to examine the behavior of this absolute value function when x is greater than 7 and when x is less than 7. So first we're going to look at what happens when x is less than 7. Well, first we're going to plug in a number that's less than 7 as x. Let's say negative 5 minus 7, and we're going to place that into our absolute value. So negative 5 minus 7 is equal to negative 12. And our result for absolute value of negative 12, as you all may know, is positive 12. So what did we have to do to get this positive value? Well, like last time, we had to multiply what was inside of our absolute value by negative 1. Well, same thing for our absolute value of x minus 7. We're going to have to multiply x minus 7 by negative 1, right? So that's going to be our function for when x is less than 7. Because to get positive 12, we have to multiply this negative 12 by negative 1. Alright, so now we're going to look at what happens when x is greater than or equal to 0. Sorry, when x is greater than or equal to 7. When x is greater than or equal to 7, we're going to test. We're going to plug in, let's say, 8 for x. We're going to subtract that by 7, and we get 1. And inside of our absolute value, 8 minus 7 is also equal to 1, right? So this means that we can keep our function the same. So absolute value of x minus 7 is going to be equal to x minus 7. So we can write that as our function.